going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and Bobby's going to be joining us, I believe, shortly. We're going to be going over the MLB slate for this evening. Yesterday, well, maybe I'll wait for Bobby to come to recap. Yesterday, a little bit. I have to say, I have to shout out to, I guess, to the field yesterday. Mike Meyer, whatever his name is, from Miami. I mean, he smashed in no uncertain terms. What do you like, 40 fantasy points or something like that? And everybody played him somehow. I mean, everybody knew. He was like in some of the contests, he was about 40% owned. I was shocked. I was so proud of myself for getting what I thought was the low-owned Mike Myers or whatever. And it turns out that it was not the slightest bit low-owned, and it was the most obvious play for everybody. I have no idea how. I thought it was a very, very well spread out pitcher slate. I thought Robbie Ray was going to be mega chalk, and everybody else was going to be whatever. But it turns out that everybody knew for the Mike Mayer. So good on them. So I ended up playing Mike Mayer. Also, I played him with some of the Brewers to try to get against Robbie Ray, and it looked pretty good for a little bit. You know, first 2 innings they were really getting him, and then no, not so much anymore. Yeah, NBA last night, as I was not too surprised. The Knicks came up a little flat, coming off of that. You know, obviously that 21-0 run in Game 1 was, you know, that was a really big deal, and it guess took a little bit out of them. In Detroit, bounced back really nicely. And I told you guys before, when we talk about this, some of these betting angles, these Game 2s on the road are very sneaky. You know, when you have a home team that's favored to win the series, and they come out in Game 1 and get the win, the Game 2 for the road team is usually really, really live. And that was a really good example of that. In addition to the baseball slate, we do have a 3-game NBA slate, which we're not going to go over today. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later. But one thing I will say while I have you guys' attention is that I'll share my screen here. And that the NBA slate for the night, there are 3 games and a big gap between the first 2 and the last one. And it's interesting. You have the first game of the night, the Milwaukee Indiana, is going to be the most fantasy friendly because it's got the good combination of the good total and the low spread. I mean, you got the good spread. Excuse me, you have the good total in the OKC game, but spread is a little bit daunting. I mean, OKC just beats the crap out of everybody. And then Lakers, Minnesota, the line is pretty close, but the total is kind of low. So I imagine that the Milwaukee, Indiana game is going to be where the majority of the ownership comes from. All right, so I guess we could just go ahead and I'll just go ahead and get started. Bobby will just hop in whenever he gets here. I guess the first thing that I would do is check on the weather. So let's just go to Roto Grinders real quick and see if Roth has anything to say. Yeah, so St. Louis and Orange, St. Louis and Atlanta. I don't even know if that's on the slate. Orange, yellow. Cubs are yellow. So is that Atlanta game on the main slate? Yeah, it is. So we definitely have to keep an eye on that one. So let's just pull these up. We'll go game by game. I have some Survivor stuff to talk about when Bobby gets here as well. But we have Christopher Sanchez. Oh, there he is. Let's put him in here.
Hey.
What's up, Bobby?
How's it going?
So I actually, before I get into it, I want to get your opinion on something I just talked about for just a couple of minutes.
I have not looked at the slate at all today yet. So
we'll get there. Well, I'll get there. But for last night, I was very surprised. I mean, kudos to the field. I thought that and I got a decent amount of that Michael Mayer or whatever, but I thought he was going to be kind of lower owned. I mean, he got jammed. I mean, like everybody knew to play him somehow. I was very surprised. I thought it was a very spread out pitcher slate where people were going to play Robbie Ray and then kind of dip into everybody, but somehow everybody knew.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good every start, and I wasn't surprised. I sort of figured that he, but it wasn't like he was like crazy owned. I mean, he was in the 30s. There was what, 4
I guess so. It was only 12 pitchers. I guess so.
Yeah. I wasn't that surprised, but I was surprised by the result. That was quite a performance.
Yeah. And the other thing I just kind of touched on, then we'll kind of get into this is I'll get into this is the NBA tonight. Again, we're not going to do a full breakdown of the NBA now, but the thing I identified for everybody, and maybe you have a comment on this, is number one, obviously watch this gap into this late game.
Yep.
And the other thing is it seems like pretty interesting dichotomy. Like the first game's got the good combination of good total and good spread, and and then game 2 is good total, bad spread, and game 3 good spread, bad total. So but it's got late game vig. So any thoughts on the games, by the way?
So I mean, I think that, and by the way, I just got to say, I did watch the entire. Look, the Lakers and Clippers are not rivals. Everybody knows this. If you're in LA, I have a hard. I've watched the Clippers enough this year. I find them incredibly watchable. I love the way they play basketball. I think that they really, really are impressive, and one of the best coached teams. And their whole defensive scheme is really awesome. So I love watching them, and I love Westbrook. Obviously, also I love Jokic and Denver. And that series has been absolutely incredible. That was an incredible 2 games so far that we've had from them. And that was a really great game yesterday, I thought. And I think that game's good. I think that series is likely going to go 7 or at least a very, very difficult 6. Tonight's games, I'm interested to see what happens with Milwaukee and Indiana, because Giannis hasn't won a playoff game in over 3 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, he's been hurt for some of them. I do think Indiana wins that series, but I expect them to play a little bit closer tonight. But I still like Indiana there. I think Memphis is going to get stomped most likely again, but I think it'll probably be competitive for a half. And I think that the Lakers will bounce back and beat Minnesota tonight.
Yeah, I talked about the playoff system, whatever playoff trend that I identify every year, and it's so far I think 2-0 already this year is when you just have the home favorite like wins game 1, they always take a nice sigh of relief. And then always let down in game 2. So, so number one example was the Knicks. Okay. Number 2 example, like you said, not they let down, but the Clipper, the Nuggets won game 1, right?
Yep.
Then they let down game 2. So I'll continue that. I would play both underdogs here in the first 2 games to cover the Milwaukee and Memphis.
Yeah.
I would play both them to cover. A little different dynamic because Minnesota took game 1 in LA. But for the same reasons, sort of. I mean, I would Minnesota, now that they have the home court advantage, they might, it might be natural to let down just a little bit, So I think the Lakers, like you said, I mean, I don't know if Luka gets 50 real life points, but I understand the sentiment, this is like, F this, you know what I mean? Like, Dallas got eliminated, so we can't get eliminated. The first round is Dallas because I don't want to hear it, So I do expect them to bounce back rather nicely.
Yeah, I think so too, and I do think that they're these are going to be longer series, and it's a lot gets made after the first games of a lot of them, and it's really, really hard to judge. I do think that the Memphis one though is going to be tough because they're like OKC is what they were on their way to becoming.
They're a wrecking machine.
They're just better at every position. They're just a better version of everything that was happening with Memphis, and every player is even somewhat similar to each other, but just they're a better version. When I
was at the basketball game the other night with Matt, and he was saying, "Oh, the Lakers are going to win," right? I'm like, "You don't know how good OKC is, do you? You don't really watch these games." He's like, "Who do they have? They have Shea. Who else do they have?" I'm like, "It's not even like that. Like I could list to you who they have. You wouldn't have heard of any of them, honestly. But they're all great. Like everybody on the team is great.
Right. They 1 through 12 are awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to show you something else, and then this is actually thematic, and we'll get into the slate. in the category of it's rough out there, okay?
Mhm.
I want to show you the breakdown of the survivor pool picks for this week. For the pool, Minnesota, huge chalk.
Oh my God, and Kansas City was second.
And Kansas City was second.
So we're doing things at least the way that everyone else is doing, although that's not necessarily what we were trying to do.
That's right. The other thing I did is I actually finally did some work on. Kevin actually prompted me to do this. I actually put a map out together of like possibilities for the season. I put that into the Survivor Discord. I did some research and I put whatever. So we'll see. Now the reason why I bring this up, by the way, to lead in today's slate is I'll tell you what, the DFS community certainly is on board with us because I actually have the pitcher for Minnesota and the Minnesota bats to be number one on both, like for DFS today, both pitcher and hitting as far as value goes and everything like that. So we got the DFS community on board. That's because good. Remember, we got the 3 games against the White Sox. We better look good, against the White Sox. So what we'll do is I'll go through game by game because I actually did list off, who I thought was good.
Yeah,
maybe just give me your overall kind of like idea. So what would you think, like in the like Mets Philly, like Sanchez and Canning?
I don't really like taking pitchers against either of these teams. That's my take. And big slates, I don't have to. As I mentioned last night, with Nola, I'm not playing Nola against the Mets. In fact, I had some Mets stacks which didn't get there, but that's how little I thought of it. Sanchez is a good pitcher. I don't play pitchers against the Mets and Phillies on big slates, and I am confused as to why. And maybe we'll get into it. I guess we'll get into it in a little bit. But like I said, I had a whole car issue. They had to tow my car. I've got to get a lemon law lawyer now, and all this craziness, which is not so fun. Yes, I mean, so let me just look at this game. I would have thought Philly's run total would be higher, and I thought Philly would look like a legitimately like great option. I know Canning had one good start against St. Louis last time out,
right?
But I think the Phillies are like, this is an incredible low-owned stack. The problem with them, they're so expensive; it's hard to play them. And I'm surprised again. The run total at 4.2 in Vegas, 4.8 on Zabersim. That feels closer. I don't know why 4.2 would be the median. I know they haven't been great, but I think Philly is like right off the bat a terrific contrarian stack. That's where I'm at.
I'd also like to say, by the way, that with a 100-game baseball slate and the Lakers at 10 p.m. finishing off the NBA slate, NHL playoffs, I am going live tonight for sure.
Okay, I'll try to join you if I can figure out my car.
I am going live tonight for sure. There's got to be something to sweat between 3 freaking sports.
Yeah.
Our worst case, do a live lineup build for League of Legends. Anyway, I have Christopher Sanchez as kind of like a second tier pitcher. When you go through the pitchers on the slate, I mean, like it's you'll see it's really not that great like either way. But so I have Sanchez as kind of like just sort of an option. But like you said, you don't want to mess with either of these teams. And I'm with you on the Phillies, by the way. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're too expensive to get in. Maybe that's why they're tough. Yeah. But I'll tell you this. You had Griffin Canning, like you said, he had one good outing, but he is definitely wreckable,
We've seen him before plenty of times.
Yeah, he's definitely wreckable. All right, let's move on then. St. Louis, Atlanta. St. Louis is just good enough to kind of like annoy Scott Schwellenbach yesterday, stuffed his ceiling somewhat. Atlanta did come back and didn't get him the win, but at least avoided getting him the loss. Not that really matters to us in DFS. So St. Louis and Atlanta, I guess might be a bullpen game or something. I don't know. I'm not getting any of these pitchers even like showing up, so I guess not. And I'm not getting into either of the hitting either. So I guess it's a bullpen game of some kind.
So yeah, I mean, for the one side it is then, but Palante will get a regular start. Okay. I know that we're going to run into stuff that looks great, and I guess there's a little bit of like Atlanta, 75-degree weather.
I guess so.
I think we could do worse.
Okay.
So right off the bat, I mean, look, maybe I won't be the one sweating, or I'll just be sweating and see if people are chasing me because I like Atlanta just like I like Philly. I like Philly a little bit better, but I do think Atlanta's on the list for me for sure. And I don't like anything else in this game, but I mean, I don't like any of the pitching, but I do think Atlanta is a really strong play. And I think that there are other spots where you're going to see the ownership, and I think that we're going to hit on them in a minute.
Yep.
But that's the only reason I can think, because last night both of Philly in this spot and Atlanta in their spot, I think would have been the massive chalk. So
in the next two games, you have the two Survivor chalk picks. You have the mediocre team against a terrible team. And those are good usually. So the first one here, you have Kansas City, and I have Chris Bubick as the top option on DraftKings, and then I actually have number one on FanDuel against Colorado. Certainly makes sense. And I actually have Kansas City rated for me number 3, just overall as far as everything else is concerned, on DraftKings and also on FanDuel.
Yeah, probably the wrong slate to take a stab at Ryan Feltner, but I think he's a little bit better than he gets credit for. We'll see. I mean,
oh yeah, he gave us a good sweat a couple of starts ago. That's for sure.
Yeah, I like Bubic. I think he's right near the top for me. Maybe at the top. And I am not as interested in KC. I do not like particularly stacking against Colorado outside of Colorado, and especially when everyone's doing it. And I think that Kansas City will be one of the chalk teams tonight.
Yep.
The part that makes me kind of think though a little, I didn't realize it was, again, 77 degrees in Kansas City, which had been cold there a couple of weeks ago when we first started the season. And now you got a little bit of wind blowing out to left. I think Kansas City is in play, but I don't want to play the chalk Kansas City. So I think I'll stick to my other ones a little bit higher.
One thing I mentioned,
Atlanta does have some weather concerns, by the way.
I was just about to say, I was going to mention to you that Atlanta is like the only place with like orange yellow or something like that. And I did go over that when I
it's just that's again, we're going to deal with this all year long with Atlanta. For those of you who don't remember, like they just have these weird pop-up storms that are the hardest to figure out of any of the stadiums, whether it's going to rain over the stadium. So it's important to remember that stuff. But yeah, Kansas City in a vacuum certainly makes a lot of sense. I personally will probably not play the chalk on this big of a slate.
Minnesota, Chicago is the second iteration of the same idea. Minnesota's not great, but they're good enough to be a decent favorite over the White Sox, who are another season of malady, I guess. So you have Bailey Ober, who for me, I mean, at this price is just too cheap for this matchup, as a result, he's showing up as a really, really good value. And as we're going to get to in a minute, there are spots that you can spend up, for hitting. So he's showing up for me alongside of Bubick as the main, I guess, cashy, chalky, whatever pairing. But that's just, you get the perfect matchup, and the prices are pretty good. So certainly makes sense. And I have the Twins right now as top overall value stack on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So not just raw points. We'll get to that as I mentioned in a second. But I definitely like that. And it's just as far as pure value goes, I do have the White Sox as cheap enough, to make it into some stacks. So I do like that part of it also.
Yeah, I think that's a really good contrarian, like lottery type of play, the White Sox. But my main builds over is right there with Bubic for me, especially because he's 6,900, and Minnesota is, as I think, that probably the top stack on the night. Why they're not getting more ownership, I'm kind of confused by. I'm looking.
They will.
I think it's wrong. They've only got one player projected at 10% ownership. Again, like I said, I was a little late to everything today, so I didn't prepare as much as usual. But I'm wondering what we're going to run into. I guess it's going to be. I guess there's. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but I guess there's going to be. Oh, you know what it is? It's going to be the A's game. That's what's going to happen.
The late night hammer.
Yeah, that's going to be where everyone goes. But I do like this. I do like this Minnesota stuff. So I think we have other things to do outside of just the A's game.
Yep. So there's a couple of just kind of raw point spots that we'll get to, and one of them is here. I mean, every time the Dodgers play, they're just kind of in play. They're always live for 10 runs. Now, the weather in Chicago is not classic Cubs Wrigley stuff, at least not for now. and their opponent, the pitcher, is obviously pretty good, in Imanaga. So it's not a bargain, but I have no problem getting to Dodgers if that's what playing Ober and and Bubic and stuff like that can get me. So that's fine. The Dustin May experience, again, just be careful if you do that. I ran into that last time I played him. That
He was awesome.
He was amazing, but he was only 78 pitches or something like that.
Well, they're just going to pull him at the end of.
Right.
He's not going to pitch more than 6 innings.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so just be careful if you do that. That's all.
Yeah. I got you.
So I'm not getting to him, but at least in my big buy-ins. So for me, I'll probably get to some Dodgers, just I guess naturally if I play Bubic. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know what to do here because I don't like playing against Imanaga, but it is blowing out. It's only 8 miles an hour, but that's in Chicago. That's a lot. Like, I don't know, man. I'm struggling with this one. Is this going to be the first night we've done a show where I didn't say I like the Dodgers? Maybe. I guess it is. Not all that interested in this game as a whole. They're going to be careful with Dustin May's arm, which is a good point. But the pitch count exactly is always going to be tough to figure out because it really will have to do with end of innings and that type of situation. But they're not going to push any pitchers. In general, probably fading the Dodgers pitchers during the regular season outside of, maybe Yamamoto is probably not the worst idea in the world.
Hang on 1 second.
All right, do you think?
I'm recording. You need me?
Yeah, so this one sort of feels like a big cross-off. For
the what?
Strange with a little wind in Chicago. I'll have to revisit this one later because I don't know. It feels like with some wind in Chicago, we're supposed to do something, but I guess not. I guess that I'm off of it right now.
So it's a really interesting slate. Okay, so we already teased the Texas Oakland game, which we'll get to, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and we talked about these chalky 740s, and then even the Dodgers. I definitely think that if you play any of this other stuff, they're going to be like 3% owned. Okay. So if you're looking for things to get to, I think any of these games are going to fit the bill. Now, with that said, as you see, we'll go through them. Nothing looks like that great. So let's just start. Bassett against Blanco. This is one where, Bassett, I think, just had a really, really nice game. But I don't need to mess with this. And Blanco, I don't know. He just 12-point projection. I don't know. I'm not really getting there. So I'm probably going to ignore this game. But again, just if you're playing big lotteries, if you get to any of these pre-Texas games, they're all going to be just hyper low owned.
Yeah, I like Bassett. I know like they can score runs on a certain night and they had a good inning or whatever. Somebody had a big home run, I think, for them. I think that's what happened. But for Houston, I don't think all that highly of Houston. Bassett will be in the mix for me. He's below Bubic and Ober, but that's if you wanted a low owned. I don't think I'd go with a Toronto stack, actually. I think I'm probably off the hitting in this game. But I do think Bassett is kind of interesting.
So this one is kind of a neat one. Okay, so you have Pittsburgh against the Angels. I'll tell you right now, nobody represents like top plays here, but I have Soriano listed just beneath these guys. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of my hero. I don't know if it was last start or start before, but he was beyond amazing for me. So I wouldn't mind getting to some of that. And the Angels themselves are like a team that could fall under the radar. That I have them rated like not so much on DraftKings, on FanDuel. I have them maybe 5th or something like that. And again, there's just much better spots to go after. But it's hashtag baseball, so anything can happen. And I don't mind that. So I don't mind Soriano, and I don't mind the Angels as lower owned options.
I'm with you on both of those, and I actually don't think the Angels are going to be lower on. I think they're going to be higher on than the other teams we talked about.
Okay.
But because they do have the over 5 total, and that sort of brings people in. But I like them. And you have the weird Mike Trout year, and to see what happens with him this year is going to be interesting because this is it's it's like a completely different hitter than we've ever seen him be, which he's always been a low strikeout, high contact power, but probably less power than most people realize. Now he's all power, and that's all he hits is home runs, and he doesn't hit anything else.
I made the joke once that when I was growing up that Darryl Strawberry was going to be the first player in the season to have more home runs than RBIs.
Right. Barry Bonds used to be like that. Remember?
That's right. Yeah. King of the solo home run. That was his. That was his thing.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. So, but Soriano. And by the way, it is interesting with Soriano because I've noticed a lot of times that the stacks they want to go against him and all the things, and it's only a 3.5 total for Pittsburgh. And I think Soriano has some talent, but he's certainly like a range of outcomes guy. Like he can get completely lit up. His 2 good starts. He had a good start at Tampa Bay, and a good start at the White Sox. He got crushed by Texas, and then had a lousy start against Cleveland. It's probably not the right slate, and I don't love this lineup that they have, but they're super cheap. If you want to mention, some of those other cheap stacks, I think you could mix in the lottery. I wouldn't be opposed to Pittsburgh. I'll put it that way. Against the chalky-ish Siriano. But I think there's just too many good spots tonight. I guess maybe it's not the right slate for it.
Yep.
Tampa Bay and Arizona. What do you got here, Sheets?
Okay. So I have the fat guy as kind of like a secondary, third, tertiary option. But I wanted to ask you about, like, you always have a comment on the roof. What do we
yeah, it's open.
It's gonna be open. Okay.
Yeah.
And I forgot. That means it's good for hitting.
Good for hitting.
Okay. So so Fad. I mean, secondary option, I guess. Littell, not even an option. And I don't currently have any of the hitting here from this game. But if you tell me it's good for hitting, I can get talked into it a little bit.
Yeah, I always have a little bit of interest in Fat. Well, I don't want to say I always have. I just think he's a very interesting pitcher because I always feel like he should get hit and he never gets hit. And he's got a leash. His strikeouts have been a little bit better the last year and a half than it was the first couple. Thoughts on, again, not going to cross him off, not going to go out of my way to play him. And I like Arizona. Littell is a very mid pitcher, in my opinion. And like he can just have these massive blow up starts. Tends to get hit hard. Doesn't tend to like walk as many as some of the other guys like to stack against. But I'm a fan of this offense from Arizona, and again, they're very expensive, so you're going to get lower ownership on them. But I'm going to put Arizona as one of my stacks to try and target one of my main ones today. I do like Arizona. All right. Milwaukee. Well, I got up to a good start with my anti-Robbie Ray on a small slate last night. Then it just
me too.
Didn't keep going.
Me too.
What was really tilting? I didn't mention it before. I had with about 2 minutes to go in the game. So I put Michael Porter Jr. ended up as my second highest owned captain. And of course, Michael Porter Jr. had me in tied for first for 15,000 for the showdown. Because it was a nice showdown slate last night, but that one didn't quite get there. The only reason I bring it up is because it reminded me at one point in the night, it looked like things were going to go really, really well. Instead, it said they went the other direction, and it was pretty late in the night. Anyway, Arizona, San Francisco. For me, this is probably a cross off, except for maybe some Jordan Hicks. Anything for you, Sheets?
No, I'm getting nothing from this game. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like much. The only thing I can think of is. Well, am I overlooking the Jordan Hicks maybe a little too much? Am I just not thinking about it enough? You've got a low total from a team that struggled. Now he's been all over the map after an incredible first start. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. He's got some talent. I think I'm going to throw Hicks on my list.
Is the same Jose Quintana?
Yeah, the ageless wonder.
Yep.
The guy who for years I had to make the case for people to stop trying to stack against him because he gave up like one home run in any of it. He had like 30 starts with like one home run allowed, and every week it was stack against Jose Quintana. He can't throw anymore. I'm like, well, they're not hitting any home runs off of him. That's it. But now he does actually give up some more stuff. But I just don't think we need to get involved in this game on this slate. All right.
So now we get to Texas or Oakland, and. This I'm telling you, this is what makes DFS fun. I'm telling you, to have this big old game at the end, where it doesn't matter what you got, you're not safe. And if you have these guys live, you're live. Both sides, both Oakland and Texas, and off to the races. You know what I mean? You got Patrick Corbin coming off a win, by the way, right? It's coming off a good performance. Makes it even more likely that he gets rocked. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm down with this.
Yeah, and at first look, it's not getting like it looks more like mostly Texas is getting the ownership with a little bit from Oakland. Oh, they're both getting some decent ownership. Yeah, it's really hard not to have interest in both these teams offensively, and they are treating that park like the park that we thought it might be. I mean, you know what the total is in this game right now? Because Bido was like, early when he pitched last time, it was like a 3-run total against him. Texas has been bad offensively. They've mostly been bad. And they've got, this game has a 10.5 total. That's a lot. It's 75 degrees too, with, some wind blowing out to left. It's a pretty obvious spot to attack. And I think it's going to end up by the end of the day being that both of these will be the most popular stacks. I would side with Oakland over Texas, but very hard to ignore it. And I guess sort of to round it out for me, the spots I like the best are I do like this spot. I'm not going to ignore it, but I'm also not going to I don't want to go crazy with it. Arizona, Minnesota, and Philly would be my other 3 favorites. And my favorite pitchers are Bubic and Ober. And then I have Bassett, Soriano with a Hicks question mark. I don't know if I want to do the Hicks thing, but I'm interested in potentially doing it. So those are my main ones for today. And as you mentioned, Atlanta, the one game with the weather, and the Dodgers looks like, you might get some rain or something, but I don't think you're gonna see a postponement of any kind or anything. It's maybe a delay. But we'll just have to keep an eye on Atlanta as we get closer, because they're another team that I could talk myself into a full stack on for sure. They're also on fire, Atlanta. They're starting to win. They won 4 in a row. Let's see what else we got. So did you run your things?
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, so we'll see what comes up for you, and I'll try and see what comes up for me here.
Well, just with Saber Scroll, I could do first. How about that? 67% Dodgers. Let's go. Wow. And then KC and then Texas. Well, I'm telling you, this not so much the Bubic and this. Let's see the pitchers. I'm sure I'm getting all the Ober, right? I mean, it just naturally gives this to you. Bubic, Ober, and Sanchez. None of them over 9K. That's just what you're going to get. You're going to get raw points, I guess. But let's take a look at the Sims, see what happens.
I'm interested in. I know Sanchez just had an insane game, but I just feel like he always, I don't know. Maybe I have to reconsider I have to think about Sanchez. He must have some history with the Mets.
All right, so when we run the Sims, let's see what we get. This I'm not too surprised about. White Sox, and then the Dodgers.
And the Dodgers. Interesting. I'm running mine and seeing what I get with just the Saber Sim stuff.
But more, this was my projections. And check this out: the majority of the stacks are 4-2s. It's a Bobby night.
Oh my God, that's very strange, because last night that would have made a lot more sense to me than tonight does. Because tonight with a bigger slate, I think more chances. It's always that's weird. All right, let's see what I've got here. And okay, come on. Oh, I didn't put my Sims in yet. That's why I didn't put my contest in. No wonder it's not working. Yeah, the Bubic. Actually, only a Bubic fought over, and then the stacks. White Sox, almost all White Sox. Well, I'm not doing that. I reserve the right to not play the White Sox, and I am going to take that right. So we'll be live at 5:30, and we can also go over the NBA stuff a little bit, because I actually do think that it's pretty interesting. They're running big tournaments out there. I did well or not well. I was profitable in NBA last night, and I was not profitable in MLB.
I was close in the NBA actually.
Really? What to
couldn't quite get any, the last couple of minutes exactly right.
That's what I had too with the showdown, especially with the.
I didn't play the showdown, but in the two it seems like showdown, but in the two classic slates, I was in there.
It was weird because the showdown slates were bigger than the classic slates last night.
Oh, is that right? I didn't even
Yeah,
notice.
it was a big showdown. It was 100K for first. It was
Really?
Yeah.
What am I doing? Okay.
So, but it was I'm telling you that these overreactions and everybody saying Michael Porter Jr. is not going to play and Westbrook played all the minutes made no one play Michael Porter Jr. and even in showdown he was like 10% owned.
Yeah.
And he ended up, of course, having a very big game. All right, so we'll be live later. And
watch for Adams the hockey thing. I think he's probably going to do one. I imagine. And I'm going to be my availability is fishy for this evening. It's not bad, but it's fishy. I'm going to have to leave at like 5:45 and then back at 6:15 or something. So I'll have to figure out when I can hop in there. But
if you know, let me know. If not, whatever. I'll just go ahead with it as usual. But I can always
definitely start without me.
Yeah.
And that's it.
All right. Good luck tonight, everybody, and we'll see you live at 5:30. And I'll talk to you soon, Sheets.
All right, later, man.
Good luck, guys.